In Ninjutsu, they used to meditate on death. In modern times, this may seem odd in Western cultures, but you must look at it in a different standpoint. Their standpoint. To make it much simpler to understand, let me explain it this way. They believe that life is nothing more than a dream with its periodic nightmares, and that death is like waking up from that dream. If you see heaven as a perfect place, and there was no hell, then you would not fear death because it would be a release from the physical and emotional pain that comes with life. But on the note of heaven, how do we really know that there is one? Some people believe that when you die, that you just become energy floating through the air. In fact, this first became a public idea when spoken by Albert Einstein. Energy cannot feel pain. So if we become energy after death, there is nothing to fear. The true fear of death comes from the initial pain that comes before you actually die, not the death itself. For some, it is also the fear of leaving their loved ones. But then, under Einstein's theory, there would not be nothing to miss because you would constantly be around them anyway.
Now, many people may think that it's odd that ninja used to meditate on death. And some people think it's odd that I do the same thing. Because everyone's talking about, oh, you should cherish life and everything else. Well, when ninja meditate on death, it's not that they don't cherish life. In fact, they do. They very much do respect life in every little minute aspect. The point to meditating on death falls into play about the fear of death. People have a natural fear of dying because it is the unknown. No one knows what it's going to be like after a person dies. Some people fear death because what they will be leaving behind or who they will be leaving behind and what tasks they would not have finished or things that they would like to do and still haven't yet been able to do. But the whole point to meditating on death is to eliminate the fear of death. See, when there's various different levels within the ability of a person fighting for their well-being. When it comes to fighting for themselves, they'll sometimes put up a pretty good fight. But then when it comes to protecting their loved ones, such as their mother, well, that's the next step to them fighting even harder. When it comes to them fighting for their wife or their girlfriend, then they will fight even harder than they would typically for their mother. The ultimate is when they're fighting to protect their children. Usually when a person is defending their children, it's like going up against a wild animal because they're willing to give their life for their children and on so down in the scale to the bottom where they're fighting for their own self-preservation. It's just a natural instinct on a psychological level within the human mind. It's how the mind unconsciously prioritizes. Now, when a ninja meditates on death, what they are doing is they are preparing themselves. What they are doing is they are looking at life as like a dream. When you dream, some good things will happen, some bad things will happen, and sometimes it can be wonderful and sometimes it can be terrifying. Well, it's the same with life. You know, all throughout life you have various different things that will terrify you and things that will bring you joy or pleasure. So with there being all these emotions and physical aspects involved in life, by viewing death as the next plane, as a much more higher plane, a positive plane. It's like waking up from a dream, because you're moving on from one phase to the next. And therefore, when you're waking up for a dream, you don't fear waking up. You're rejoiced that you've moved on from that aspect of whatever was going on in that dream or nightmare, because it's a whole new realm. If you're having a nightmare, you rejoice that you've woken up for a minute because it's over. And you can look at it and realize, oh, thank God it was just a dream. The same way with life. When you die, we shouldn't fear death, because you're moving on to another plane. You can look back on it and say, oh, thank God, I don't have to go through the pain and suffering that I went through before I died. Because when you die, it's a painful thing.